tons of responses from all of you, but then the sheriff came out and explained, or tried to explain, what he did. He's completely unapologetic about this, and then even more responses from you have been coming in. This is a big discussion that we're going to have about this. Before we do anything else, though, again, here is what the sheriff originally said.
On November 4th, let's leave Barack Hussein Obama wondering what happened.
Emphasis on Hussein, emphasis on the salute. This is now what the sheriff has been saying today. When asked why he would say this, why he used Barack Obama's middle name, he says, despite varying inferences, interpretations, opinions, and extrapolations, the answer is because I wanted to. Much like I wanted to voice my support for the Barron Collier marching band. There's another question here, and that's about the Hatch Act. And the question comes in as to whether or not a government resource, or a man who works as a part of a government resource, should be using any kind of political activity or should be involved in a political activity. That's why he's being investigated, because he is, after all, a public official. Now, let's put up his response to that. On the question of whether he should do this as an elected official or a public official, I have not heard similar concern over the many other elected officials that day and every day engaging in the same activities across our state and our country. Then, there's another question. The question as to whether or not he should have done this. After all, he was wearing a uniform at the time that he was doing it as a law enforcement official, even though he was elected. Here's his answer on that. He says, what about the fact that he was wearing the uniform? He goes on to say, my practice has been to wear the uniform at all times, and as is undisputed, I am on duty 24/7, 365. Like I said, lots of responses on this. I'm going to share some of those with you now because we know there's just so many of you at home that want to get in on this discussion. Here's one that's somewhat representative of the folks who have been discussing this and disagreeing with what the sheriff has to say. Let's go over to our Twitter board if we possibly can. This is what John Santangelo says. You got it, Johnny? Be good. What would that cop do if a house was robbed and it had an Obama sign in the yard? Or if a car got pulled over with an Obama bumper sticker? All right, that's part of the questions. There's many more. We're going to get through many of them. Mike Brooks, our own security analyst and law enforcement analyst who's been in that position, is going to join us in just a little bit. He says that the sheriff might be very well within his right to say and do exactly what he did. I know for many of you, it's a disagreement. For many of you, it isn't. We've been receiving emails from both sides. But here's another question that we're going to be doing throughout this show, because you think, thematically speaking, it's what many people have been talking about. Can Barack Obama win this election, given the environment that we have been talking about in the last couple of days and certainly within the last week? Listen here to the words of David Gergen on this network 2 nights ago.
I think it's too early to declare a victory, Anderson, because Barack Obama is black. And I think until we play out the issue of race in this country, I don't think we will know, and it may be late in the campaign.
You think that despite the lead in the polls, people might change their mind once they're actually in the voting booth?
I'm not sure the polls are totally believable. I think there may be built-in. There is this, this study now that's come out of Stanford University and Associated Press along with Yahoo, saying that his blackness may cost him as much as 6 points. And, I think he's in a commanding position coming out of this second debate. Having won 2, having done as well as he has, I think he's established in the public mind now that he is certainly as qualified to be president as John McCain. And he's come a long way in that sense. He's much more sure-footed. He's very presidential tonight. But we don't know about the race factor in America now.
His blackness. Here's the bold question that we're going to be tackling during this hour. Is it really a question of some people just being racist? Or is it people who are simply, well, uncomfortable with something that's unfamiliar to them? And it may just take a while for them to get there. Here's an interesting way of looking at this. I want you to watch this report. It's by Carol Costello. She goes out with people who are supporters of Barack Obama, trying to do some door-to-door knocking and campaigning for him. This is what they found out on one given day. Watch this.
It remains an ugly truth. Race still matters. The question is, how much? Barack Obama leads in the latest national polls, yet his foot soldiers on the ground still worry.
When he finally got to her, she finally just sort of lowered her voice and said, well, it's because he's black.
In this small town in Pennsylvania, Jim English with the United Steelworkers Union is sending out teams of union workers like Andy, Laura, and Doug to knock on doors. Their job is to make sure their fellow steelworkers vote Obama.
I'm just worried about foreign policy with Obama.
That's an argument they feel they can win, but sometimes it's more complicated.
One lady I went to told me that the reason why she had the issue was because of how she was raised. She said her father is still alive and he's 85 and he couldn't see himself voting for a black man.
So they have to convince some of their union brethren the race isn't about race.
And she flat out said to me, I can't vote for that black boy.
They talked about him being a Muslim. He said countless times that he's a Christian.
Obama is and always has been a Christian. The union feels the Muslim tag is really code for he's black.
What they're saying is really probably a cover for being uncomfortable with him because of his race.
In other words, he says, sadly, in some circles, it's socially acceptable to call Obama Muslim rather than something else. And it's not just here in Pennsylvania. Subtle references on the campaign trail to Obama's middle name just reinforce those Muslim beliefs.
On November 4th, let's leave Barack Hussein Obama wondering what happened.
And just last week in Ohio,
he was a Muslim, but he won't say it.
Andy, Doug, and Laura are used to that by now. Andy says about a quarter of the people he talks to raise the race issue, but he has a ready response.
What I do when they bring that up, I just say, look, we got to get past that. We live in America. We're the best nation on earth. We got to get to the real issues of what's going on in this campaign.
Carol Costello, CNN.
I want to bring your attention now to something that's going on that is